I think I was just waking up in the morning and going through the day and going to bed at night. But I think that's what most people do. I hadn't gone to school. I only had 2 months high school. I never had a good job, but I couldn't hold a job. I wasn't a good employee. I would just do enough so I wouldn't get fired, but I got fired a lot. And I met a man, Ray Stanford in Toronto. He got talking to me, he said, "Why don't you change the way you're living?" Well, you know, it never entered my mind that I could or that I should. I didn't give any thought to it. And in looking back, I don't think most people do. They're thinking of what they're going to do with their life, but they're in the minority. 90-some% of the population are lost, and I was. I had never done anything of any consequence. I was earning $4,000 a year. I owed $6,000. So, I mean, if I had taken all the money I earned for 18 months and paid debt, I would have just broken even. I was not happy. And he said, "Why don't you change your results?" Well, like I said, it never entered my mind that I could. And then he asked me, do you read anything? And I said, "No, I can't read." Now, I could read. I didn't. He gave me this book. And this is the book that's in Think, that Sean used in Think. Everything in my life started to change. You've got to decide what you want. That never entered my mind, you know. And he talked to me for a while. Well, it ended up, I said I wanted $25,000. I didn't even know anyone with $25,000. And I didn't believe it. But he said, if you do exactly what I tell you, you can have anything you want. I not only didn't believe it, there was no way I could believe it. But the way he spoke to me, he had such conviction. I knew he believed it. At least I believed he believed it. And then he said to me, "Why don't you do what I'm telling you?" He said, "Your way's not working, mine is." He was happy, healthy, wealthy. And something inside me said, "Why don't you do what he says?" And so I said, "Okay." And that's really where it all started. And he gave me this book. And he said, "Read this every day." He got me to commit that I'd read it every day. I started to read it. And he said, "Do exactly what I'm telling you, do what the book tells you." Well, my whole life changed. What happened was, I carry a goal card. I always have one. I keep it in a plastic sleeve. See, when you write your goal, you create a picture in your mind. It's like painting a picture in words. And that picture is impregnated into cells in your brain. Well, when you touch something, your sensory factor touch is affected. It sends a light message through your central nervous system and activates those cells in your brain, so the picture of your goal flashes on the screen of your mind. Well, I didn't know any of this at the time, but he had me write it on a card. So I wrote the goal that I wanted on a card, and I put it in my pocket. And what happened was, I started to treat it as a joke, but I started to think of earning money. Now you'd think, well, weren't you thinking of that before? No, I wasn't. I would get paid whatever they give me, and I was always in debt. So I was thinking debt. Now I'll tell you one thing I've learned. If your goal is to get out of debt, you'll probably stay in debt forever, because that's what you're thinking about. And I quit thinking of debt and I started to think of earning money. I heard a guy say, there's good money cleaning floors. And I remember I had to borrow $980, and that was not an easy thing for me to do. Nobody wanted to lend me money. But I needed that much to buy a used floor machine and some buckets and mops. And he said something, he says, "Don't clean floors for somebody else, do them for yourself." The first year I earned $175,000. In under 5 years, I was over $1 million. It's got to be believed. You've got to believe it. And if there's no belief, it ain't going to happen. See, when you believe it, you're encased in the idea. You fuse with the idea. And that makes all kinds of things happen. When you believe it, there's no quitting. You never quit. It doesn't matter what happens. You don't quit. Quitting is never an option. The people that quit, they never really bought into the idea in the first place. See, you get it on 3 levels. The second you think of something, you've got it intellectually. When you get emotionally involved, you've got it on a spiritual or emotional level. Well, then that expresses itself through the body. Body's just an instrument of your mind. When you really buy into it, you literally fuse with it. Neville said you fuse with it. And this causes all kinds of things to happen. You're dealing with electronics, you're dealing with energy. See, you live on frequencies, you think on frequencies. Now, when you think of something, what you've done is you've flipped your brain onto a higher frequency. The very fact you can see it is all the proof you need to know you could get it. What you have to do is raise your level of consciousness to that frequency. And then you will attract whatever's on that frequency. All the good you need to manifest the idea. Carnegie said that. Any idea that's held in the mind, that's emphasized, that's either feared or revered, so it could be bad or good, that's either feared or revered, will begin at once to clothe itself in the most convenient and appropriate form available. Well, one of the first laws is the perpetual transmutation of energy. Energy is forever moving into form, through form and back into form. Now, what makes you and I unique is we can dictate the form it's going to move into because we're creative beings. Well, the people that quit work and retire, they don't even understand who they are. We're not made for work. Work's made for us. What we've got to do is find out what we love. And then you have to do it because you love it. And so age, time, space, nothing to do with it. Your mind is full of the idea. You get up, you wake up, you get up. You got to get going because you got places to go and things to do, people to see. Because you're in love with an idea. See, when people quit, like 3 feet from gold, they weren't in love with that idea. They were going after the money. It wasn't the idea that motivated them, it was the money that motivated them. And that's why they quit. See, when you're going after what you want, and that's one of the big problems with people when they set goals. They set a goal to do what they think they can do. Well, there's no inspiration in that. It's got to be what you want to do. See, wants come from the essence of who we are. We're spiritual beings, and we are a soul. We don't have a soul, we are a soul. And the soul is forever seeking its awareness of its oneness with that which is, which I call God. Spirit's always for expansion and fuller expression. It's never for disintegration. So there's a basic law of the universe. If you're not growing, you're dying. It's create or disintegrate. Nothing stays where it is. We live in an ocean of motion. So it's the spirit within. Our spiritual DNA is perfect. There's perfection within every one of us. Well, it's that perfection seeking expression through us. It causes us to want. If you run, you want to run faster. If you jump, you want to jump higher. If you're selling, you want to sell more. Doesn't matter what you're doing, you want to do it better. When people understand where wants come from, that's when their life starts to change, I think. So we don't go after what we want. Most people set goals to do what they think they can do. There's no inspiration in it. That's why 90% of them set a target and they quit. They set a target and quit. When you're going after your heart's desire, the success that I've enjoyed is because of the mentors or the coaches I've had. I would do exactly what they tell me. And if I coach somebody today and they don't do exactly what I tell them, I don't coach them anymore. Just like that, it's all over. Desire is the triggering mechanism that releases the energy. When you've got the desire, you've got the energy. If you haven't got any desire, you haven't got the energy. We're gifted with faculties of the mind that the average person knows nothing about. You have intuition, the will, reason, imagination, perception, memory. That's what separates us from all the rest of forms of life. We go through school and never learn anything about it. Like you'll hear people say they have a bad memory. There's no such thing as a bad memory. Everybody has a perfect memory. It's just weak. They've never developed it. Our imagination. Your imagination is the most magnificent. I can use my imagination to project myself into the future and bring the future into the present and start living there. You work from the imagination. You don't work to it. You work from it. You've got to wake up. All we're ever going to get is awareness. We've already got everything. The only thing we lack is the awareness of what we've got. We're God's highest form of creation. There's nothing on the planet that will equal us. That's all any of us are after. Most people that are teaching don't know what they're teaching. 80% of the people that teach have never done what they're teaching. I have worked all over the world, and I'm always asking people, what do you really want? And I have found most people don't want to be really wealthy. What they do want is they don't want to have any financial concerns. If they want to buy a new suit, they can go and get one. If they want to take a trip, they can take the trip. They don't want to have any financial concerns. 2, they want to wake up in the morning excited about how they're going to spend their day. And the third, they want to mix with people who are upbeat and creatively productive. These are the three things that people really want. And if somebody's watching, what's the first thing they should do? The first thing they should do is understand why we have goals, not just to set a goal, because most people don't set goals right. They're operating with a limited level of consciousness, so they're thinking, if I could get a little more money, and if I could get him to help me and her to help me, and this happened, then I could do this. Maybe this is get a new car. What we've got to understand is we're trading our life for our goals. Literally trading our life. Would you trade your life for a car or a house? I don't think so. So it's got to be something really meaningful. And we're not taught to think this way. We should sit down and don't give any thought to where the money's going to come from, where the help's going to come from. It's what do you really want? So when a person sets a goal, they've got to say, what would I want? If I just let my mind rock, just wander, use my imagination, how do I really want to live? That's what they should be doing. That's where it should start. And then don't listen to anyone that tells them they can't. Go to someone who has done something and ask them, what should I do? And then do exactly what the person tells them. All the problems in the world come from ignorance. That's the purpose of life, to overcome ignorance, develop awareness. The only way to overcome ignorance is through knowledge. And the only way to get the knowledge is to study. The biggest job for the magician is to know that you don't know what they're doing. They're going to remember that. When you find out what's happening, it's not magic any longer. But when you study your personality and you study life and you study your mental faculties, that's real magic. Depression it starts out from ignorance, doubt, and worry. I've got a chart, I show it. Doubt and worry is on the negative side of life. Understanding is on the positive side. Right. Doubt and worry comes from ignorance. Understanding comes from knowledge, but you got to study to get it. Doubt and worry are a psychic disease. It's an intellectual exercise. They're using their intellectual factors to build a negative idea, and that's all they see. They take and internalize that, and they get emotionally involved with it. It goes from doubt and worry to fear. They've emotionalized the doubt or worry. Turns into fear. The fear is in the emotional mind, and the emotion must be expressed through the only instrument it can be expressed through, the physical body. So it moves the body into a state we call anxiety. Anxiety is never expressed. Anxiety is suppressed. The suppression turns to depression. They bottle it up inside. They suppressed the fear, it turns into depression. The depression turns into disease. The disease turns into decay. St. Clair Lewis was right. He said we don't die, we kill ourselves. Now what is the opposite of all that? You'll go from ignorance to doubt and worry to fear, to anxiety, suppression, depression, disease, disintegration. Go over on the other side. You go from understanding to emotional state called faith. You just know it's going to move into form because you understand the law. Faith isn't believing something you can't see. Strange thing about faith and fear, they both demand you believe something you can't see. Why would people choose fear over faith? Because they're ignorant. So you go from understanding to faith. The faith manifests on the physical plane, not as anxiety, as well-being. The well-being is not suppressed, it's expressed. And the expression turns to acceleration. You're building energy. And that is because there's no disease, you're at ease. And that turns into creation, not disintegration. It's all a mental trip that they're building. The environment has a greater influence than genetics. However, you look like your relatives because of the genetic conditioning, and then on top of that, you've got the environmental conditioning. Well, all that conditioning is repetition in your subconscious mind. It forms something we call a paradigm. A paradigm is nothing but a mass of habits or a mass of ideas that express themselves automatically without any conscious thought. And that paradigm keeps us going. It's in our subconscious mind. We gather information in our conscious mind, but it's the subconscious that moves the body. And if we don't change that paradigm, nothing happens. That's what I did. If a person will watch this every day, the whole thing, but if they got up an hour early every morning and watched this every morning, and they did that for an entire year, I guarantee you they would double their income. And I don't even care what they're earning. I could show anyone how to turn their annual income to a monthly income. I can show anyone how to become a millionaire. But they got to do exactly what I'm telling them. And people will say, well, that doesn't make any sense to watch it every day. Not according to the consciousness that you're operating with, but if you're operating with my consciousness, it would make a hell of a lot of sense. Most people blame their environment. Like there's people here in Serbia. I heard it 3 or 4 times today. I was in 2 or 3 of the television stations, and they were telling me about the economy here, you know. I said, it got nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. I said, I was over in Dubai here not long ago. They're skiing in the middle of the desert. Ice skiing. Don't tell me that the environment. So if somebody's watching this, what you've done in the past has no bearing on what you're going to do in the future unless you let it. It doesn't make any difference. Everything that's happened in the past has been absolutely essential to make you who you are, to prepare you to do what you're going to do. I sat down one day with my pen in this business. I said, I'm going to build a company that operates all over the world. We operate all over the world. So if you have to borrow money, borrow the money, but get into the business. Actually do it. Sandy Gallagher is my business partner. She was going through a very tough time personally a number of years ago. We were in Phoenix. We were doing a seminar. I had to leave, catch a plane somewhere. And she said, before you leave, could we get together and leave for a cup of coffee? Could you, I want to talk to you. And I said, sure. So we went across the road to a coffee shop, and we were sitting there, and she said, could you give me 2 or 3 ideas that I could do every day that would help me through this? I said, sure. So I said, every day, I want you to take a pen and write down, every morning, write down 10 things you're grateful for. But you've really got to be grateful. You've got to feel it. You're really grateful. Then I want you to send love to 3 people that are bothering you. If they're bothering you, you don't like them. They've got nothing to do with it. You're thinking bad thoughts about them. You're putting yourself in a bad vibration. Send love to 3 people that bother you. And then take 5 minutes and be quiet. Just be perfectly quiet and ask for guidance for the day. We give that out now in a lot of our seminars, and we train the audience to do it. Start every morning, write 10 things that you're grateful for. Send love to 3 people that bother you, be quiet for 5 minutes, and ask for guidance for the day. It's a winning formula. I want you to take one of these things in your hand right now, and I want you to write down what you really want. Doesn't matter how you're going to get it, write down what you really want. You'll be glad you did.